Hey everyone, welcome to Comics on Comics, the show about comics. This is, I believe, episode 12. We do this every year, every week, but if we did this every month, this would be our 1 year anniversary. So, our legacy book for this week, our flashback to the backflash, is Doctor Strange, Volume 2, number 66 from August 1984, and I'll pass it to Mike.
Yes, Comics on Comics on Master of the Mystic Arts, Doctor Strange number 66. And this is right in the middle of Roger Stern and Paul Smith's run. We got Terry Austin also inking this book, and I also liked that Jim Shooter is credited as editor supreme, because he is the editor supreme.
Yeah.
I'm a big, I guess starting off, I'm a big Paul Smith fan. So seeing him draw Doctor Strange is really, really cool. He's got a lot more details in his faces here. I know in his X-Men run, his very brief X-Men run, I thought some of his faces are kind of flat at times, but here almost everything's very, very detailed and expressive. Like he's always with a lot of the detail comes in Strange's kind of forehead and cheekbones. But this whole issue is about Strange has found the Ancient One's been reincarnated as just like this college kid from like this college kid in New York.
Well, it's not the Ancient One, it's just like an order of monks.
Oh, I read the okay. I read this as like the Ancient One. That's
No.
why. Okay. But yeah, and like the Order of Monks are like he came back and he's westernized. So it was a thing going on there. But I enjoyed this. There was a lot of talking. This is much more of a setup issue than anything. We get Strange getting attacked by assassins with bow and arrows. We get some cool action shots of him jumping out of windows and fighting guys.
Yeah,
Play golf.
the jumping out the window scene is a really great panel. And also there's a great panel to panel moment when he reveals his full costume to the kid,
Yeah.
where he like disables his spell. And it's funny how Doctor Strange cheats in golf. And I thought also the assassin, and there's a twist, but when you think it's the assassin, there's like two panels where it shows him and he's like in shadow, and
Yeah.
it's more on the colorist, but that's shown in a really cool way. There's this weird subplot which we don't get into really at all in this issue, and I don't know that it is a subplot, but there's an awkward moment in this issue where basically there's another woman who's like hangs around the Sanctum Sanctorum. I'm not super familiar with the status quo to know her significance, but she wants to like go on a date with Wong, and Wong just basically is not allowed to have fun. And it's like this half a page thing, and it's like, and then Wong doesn't show up again really in the issue. And it's
He's
just like,
there at
wow,
the airport at the end.
yeah. And so here's some of the Paul Smith trajectory, which I think is interesting. So Paul Smith actually was going to be the ongoing artist on Doctor Strange. He did 2 issues and then moves over to X-Men.
Which he's on that for 15 issues, right?
Yeah, he's on that for a little bit, finishes with X-Men, and then moves back to Doctor Strange, and that's where this issue is in that part. And even then, he doesn't. Once he's back on Doctor Strange, he only draws like 8 issues or something, and then moves away from Doctor Strange. And he did other stuff. The main thing is he starts working with James Robinson. He does the Golden Age, and he does the indie series Leave It to Chance.
I would say Golden Age looks wildly different than any of his Marvel work I've seen, though. But I mean, Golden Age is still a beautiful book, though.
Yeah, and then he years later did the Kitty Pryde Shadow and Flame miniseries.
That's right.
with one Akira Yoshida.
Who, for those of you who don't know who that is, that's the current Marvel editor-in-chief, C.B. Cebulski.
Yep. So our flashback issue for next week, I spun the wheel, and we got 1994 February from DC.
All right.
We're reading Swamp Thing 140.
So he's Vertigo at this point, right?
Yeah, Vertigo officially exists, and this is the first issue of the Grant Morrison run. But Grant Morrison actually only does like 4 issues, and it becomes a Mark Millar run.
Yeah.
But it's the first issue of a run, so we'll see what we think about that.
You recently got that in trade. I think we found a couple of those. I think we found at least 2 or 3 of those books at Books A Million.
Yeah, the run has been collected in 3 trades relatively recently, within the past 5 years or so. And now let's take a detour, talk a little bit about the announced 2019 Will Eisner Award nominees.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through some of the categories and mention some nominations that we think are interesting, also more relevant to the kind of comics we cover. Best short story, the only mainstream Big Two thing is Tom King's Swamp Thing story.
Which is, I'm wondering where exactly like the cutoff for submissions is, because I feel like that issue came out like 2 years ago. But
I mean, I don't know. I think
Swamp Thing Winter Special that came out when we were still roommates in college.
yeah, which would have been
It's over a year ago. It's 2 years old, or I guess it's it's over a year old.
It may have come out like January, February 2019. I'm not sure, but and also I don't know how long that story is. I know like
it's that one's the bulk of the book though.
Yeah,
Like
I believe they as extras in that book they had
it was the unfinished
Len Wein and Kelly Jones issue, but I don't think that was more than like 10 pages, and so I don't know how you consider this a short story. I feel like that this Tom King Swamp Thing may even fit better in the next category, which is best single issue one shot. And the mainstream stuff here is a Black Hammer one shot, which I haven't read, and the final issue of Chip Zdarsky's Spider-Man run, which I read and I liked that issue.
That's Spectacular Spider-Man number 310, if you're wondering what issue exactly.
Now, best continuing series, we've got Batman by Tom King. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Got the current main Black Hammer series, currently subtitled Age of Doom. We're going to talk about Black Hammer, but not that series. Gasolina, I'm not that familiar with this book. It's one of the new Image books. I don't even think it's super popular, but apparently people like it. I think it has to do with like cartels and the border and stuff like that. Kind of an attempt at some complicated political stuff, or not political messages, but kind of regional politics and stuff, almost like Scalped. That's my understanding. We have Giant Days from Boom, which is about a bunch of like camper teenagers. I don't care. Immortal Hulk, that's one of the runaway hits from the past 12 months or so. And Runaways from Marvel, which some people really like.
I mean, if I could choose what I would give mine to, I thought this year of Batman has not been as good as other years by King. Still solid though. I would give this to Immortal Hulk. I continually think that's the best book Marvel's putting out right now.
Yeah, I would too. Let's pick kind of our picks for some of these categories. And granted, again, as alluded to, we haven't both read every single nomination.
Yeah.
But so some of this is kind of just reputation and comparing. You know, we're not reading some of these for a reason.
Yeah.
Because they don't interest us as much. So it's kind of some armchair quarterback kind of thing. Best limited series, we have Sean Murphy's Batman White Knight, Eternity Girl, kind of one of the last bits of the Young Animal line before they're relaunching that again. Exit Stage Left Snagglepuss by Mark Russell, Mr. Miracle by Tom King, and X-Men Grand Design Second Genesis by Ed Piskor. I think this is a pretty competitive category.
It's a very, very good, strong category. I'd say I know people love Sean Murphy's White Knight. I think the art's fantastic, but that story doesn't really interest me that much. That's why I haven't read it. But not to discount Sean Murphy, absolutely great work from him on that book. It looks amazing. I'm happy to see Mark Russell get nominated, but didn't read Snagglepuss. Same thing with Grand Design. I think it's one of the most creatively cool layouts of stuff I've seen just by flipping through. I haven't read it, but I have read all of Mr. Miracle. That's as of now the last book I bought in single issues. I have all of it in singles. I absolutely loved it, so I'd give mine to Mr. Miracle this year for best limited.
Yeah, I think, and some of these categories I'm going to pick on sort of what I think is going to win, with a mix of what I think should win. I think it goes to Mr. Miracle. I think Tom King is on a hot streak with the Eisners recently, and
Well, not only that, but the art by Jarrett Garrett is fantastic, and even Nick Darrington's covers have been great on that book as well.
I think Mr. Miracle, as far as the mix between critical phenomenon and fan acclaim or fan popularity, I think it really hit like the perfect combination in the past year. Best new series, I don't think we actually are remotely informed to talk about this.
I know
Nominees,
people like Skyward, so I think that has as good a shot as anything else.
every single nominee is an Image series. We have Bitter Root by David Walker, Crowded by Chris Sabella, Gideon Falls by Lemire and Sorrentino, Isola by Brendan Fletcher and Carl Kerschel, Man-Eaters by Chelsea Kane, which we've kind of not really talked about. I read the issues.
Well, we kind of talked about it last week, but
I read the issues which are not actually comic books, and then Skyward by Joe Henderson and Lee Garbett. I think all of these are acclaimed. There's no like standout like why the hell is this here thing. My pick, just based on absolutely nothing, I'm gonna go with Crowded or Gideon Falls.
I can see that too. I think, at least with Gideon Falls with Lemire.
Our next actually relevant category, skipping down a bit to
we could do best writer.
Yeah, that's the next one. So
That's
best writer,
a tight category this year.
we have Alex DeCampi for Bad Girls and Twisted Romance, Tom King, Batman, Mr. Miracle, Heroes in Crisis, Swamp Thing, Winter Special, Jeff Lemire, Black Hammer spinoffs, Descender, Gideon Falls, Royal City, Mark Russell, Snagglepuss, his crossovers between DC and Looney Tunes and Hanna-Barbera, and Lone Ranger, Kelly Thompson, Nancy Drew, Hawkeye, Jessica Jones, Mr. and Mrs. X, Rogue and Gambit, Uncanny X-Men, West Coast Avengers, Chip Zdarsky, Spectacular Spider-Man, and Marvel 2-in-1. I think I haven't read either of these things. I think the weak link is Alex DeCampi, unfortunately. We're talking about OGN, which didn't hit a wide audience, and a romance. It's twisted romance, but a romance anthology, which also didn't hit a wide audience. And she didn't contribute to 100% of that series. There were other stories by other people. So I feel no disrespect to her at all. I feel you can kind of knock her off, and I still think I still think it goes probably to Tom King.
You thinking King? I think this is a firmly. I think it's a tight race, but between Lemire and King, but I'd love to see Russell win in a dark horse category. I
Dark
think
horse?
I think it's really, really cool Zdarsky's nominated, but I think he has a better shot of winning next year with Daredevil and Invaders and Defenders being on the list. Looking at I feel like if I were to look at Zdarsky a few months ago to Zdarsky now, I think Zdarsky has much of a better shot winning this for next year than this year. But I think if you're going to take King, I think it's actually probably going to go to Lemire.
I think King is the favored, but my runner-ups actually and pretty close to each other. I would say Russell and Thompson. Now, best pencil or anchor.
There's not a bad winner in that category.
Yeah. Best pencil or anchor team, just artist. We have Matthias Vergara from Coda. We don't read that. Not that familiar. Mitch Gerrits for Mr. Miracle. Carl Kerschel for Isola. Sunny Liu for Attorney Girl. Sean Phillips for Kill or Be Killed and My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies. And Yannick Paquette for Wonder Woman Earth 1. I say it goes to Gerrits.
I think so as well. With I think after that I would choose Phillips.
Yeah. Cover artist for multiple covers. You have Jen Bartel, Nick Darrington, Carl Kerschel, Joshua Middleton. Middleton did a bunch of Aquaman and some Batgirl. Julian Tedesco, Hawkeye, Life of Captain Marvel. Eileen Middleton.
Eileen Tedesco.
I think it's hard to tell because the comics industry with covers is in a weird place right now where the idea of the speculator variant cover is now a huge thing again. And Middleton is kind of in the top 5 of that. And I don't know if that works for or against a quote unquote prestigious award like this. But I would say out of this category, his covers were the most popular and maybe
I would love for some of his Aquaman covers to be released by DC as like posters, but DC doesn't do posters anymore. So
yeah. Best coloring, I wouldn't really dwell on this, but just to call out the names, a lot of the same people as every year. We have Jordi Belair, Tamara Bonvillain, Nathan Fairbairn, Matt Hollingsworth, and Matt Wilson, all very talented people. And best lettering, we have David Aja nominated for 2 issues of Seeds. And issue 3 hasn't come out in like 6 months, and there's no sign of it. And apparently Alex DeCampi letters a lot of her indie stuff, which is pretty cool.
That's pretty sweet.
And Todd Klein nominated, as always.
I was going to say, and rounding out the list is Todd Klein once again.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain he is the winningest individual from Eisner's. Yeah. He's got like over a dozen in this category. And he works on, it looks like he works on a lot of he works on the main Black Hammer book. He worked on White Knight. I didn't know that. That's interesting. He's working on some of the current, Sandman Universe reboots. And he works still with Alan Moore on League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which is finally wrapping up. And that's pretty much it. Those are all the relevant awards we want to touch base on. Some interesting stuff. It was a pretty good year for comics overall.
Yeah, it was. I'd say the only other one I want to talk about is the best OGNs, which were notable ones for that are My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies, the Return of Criminal, and the OGN that's that Brubaker and Phillips launched before the new ongoing, and then Green Lantern Earth 1 by Gabe Hardman.
Yeah, and also DeCampi's Bad Girls, which again, she's nominated in a lot of categories, seemingly partially on the strength of that. So I'm not familiar at all with that, but there may be a good chance that's the winner here. But I would definitely give it to My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies.
Just to follow up more on Sean Phillips' praise, I ended up going back and reading the first volume, like the very, very first volume of Criminal last week. Because you had ended up giving it to me for, I think I bought something from you and you threw that in there for some reason. And it was very, very cool to see Phillips's work from then to now, and it's just like, holy crap, like the dude only got better.
Yeah. All right, now to the books of the week. We're going to start with indie stuff in the spirit of every single best new series being from Image. But Mike, I don't even remember what publisher our first book is from. Is it Boom?
Dark Horse.
Okay.
I apologize. I missed this book last week. It's Bad Luck Chuck #2 by Leela Gwen and Matt Dow Smith. So we ended that first issue with cultists and money and trying to people kill their kids to get inheritance money. We're picking up at the end of that where Chuck needs money because for apartment rent. And I feel like I missed something from issues 1 to 2 of this, where I still enjoy what's going on, but I completely don't know what's going on. Like I feel like I missed something from issue 1 to issue 2. I think the plot is kind of incoherent and weird to follow right now. But mostly this is just kind of more setup of we have things in motion as we're building to another kind of heist to happen for and it ends with Chuck exploding an abandoned building. So I'm excited to see where this still goes. I still think the art's great, and I think at least the character work here is good. But issue 3, I'm looking to figure out what I missed from what was going on here. I thought it was just a little bit hard to follow. Like I should have been. It feels like an issue should have been between 1 and 2 of like stuff I missed.
All right. Black Hammer 45, #3, also from Dark Horse. So last time the Black Hammer Squadron, did I say Black Hawk accidentally? I may have. The Black Hammer,
Blackhawks, clearly.
yeah. The Black Hammer Squadron came across the American hero Abraham Slam, and so he drives them for a while. They beat up some Nazis. He does some shit, but then he breaks off from them to some Nazis surrender, and he's like, well, the protocol. I gotta walk them back to the front lines and blah blah. And so he basically ditches them, and then we get the Russian mechas up against the German ace pilots who are fighting over this Jewish scientist family, which is the whole point, the mission here. And they all get fucked up, and the Black Hammer Squadron finally gets to them. And so the next issue, which may be the last, I'm not certain how long this is going, it's going to be them actually with this scientist Jewish family and completing the mission. And so we'll see how that goes. This issue didn't have any like crazy cool moment like the previous ones, but the art continues to be really solid, and I'm enjoying the kind of World War II hero universe and everything like that. Now, we took a chance and we checked out Gawgor #1, and the end of the issue, there's a editorial from the writer, and he does explain the pronunciation as Gawgor rather than Gogor, which is what I thought it may have been.
That's what we said last week.
So that was helpful. And this is Ken Gehring doing everything in the book.
Yeah,
he's writing, he's penciling, if there's inking, I'm not sure, colored letters. Basically, he's a cartoonist, and he's doing the whole thing.
Well, the art has a very cartoony style.
Yeah. And we have a weird dude running around on a flying shrew, and basically we get some world building. It's a series of islands that float in the air that surround a sun, and at first I thought, okay, there's some kind of civil war, but maybe he's just like a student at some like dorky university, and there's like some other dorks that attack them.
Yeah.
Um, it's like it's unclear exactly like how like weighty the conflict is here, and he runs away and they give him some scroll, and he goes fishing and he gets interrupted by a weird sage guy who's just totally down. I was really expecting a twist where like he hands the sage guy the scroll and he just started running or something. But he's just like, "Yeah, I'll help you on your hero's journey." And we get introduced to a shitload of more characters
Yeah.
and kind of teased some lore. And then he goes to try and figure out this scroll thing. He plants a hidden seed. There's the bad guys show up, and then a big swamp thing kind of creature comes alive out of the earth. And basically, it's an environmentalist kind of fantasy book. And I thought it was all right.
I thought the art was great, and the colors really were vibrant and were very, very expressive. I didn't particularly enjoy the story. I was not really enamored by it.
Yeah, it's not really. I mean, I don't know that I'll stick with it. It's not really my thing, or at least this version of it. I thought we really got bogged down when the kind of mentor character took him to the building and we got introduced to all those characters and spent like 5 pages on that. That's the part where it lost my interest because the more quiet him just running around escaping guys on his flying shrew and like using a blowgun and stuff like that, it's kind of fun in like a light cartoony way in this weird world. But once you start getting more dialogue and stuff like that, I don't care. But
Yep.
Gogor's the creature's design in the end is pretty cool. I mean, it's a swamp creature kind of thing, like Swamp Thing,
Yeah.
Man Thing, etc. But it's a cool design.
Yep.
But that's our indie corner. Mike, take us over to DC and how they're ruining everything.
I mean, I read 2 good DC books this week, so they're going to be bookended. But Batman number 70, he's finally up from that damn dream, and as I said, Batman's pissed. He's coming for Bane, but I couldn't help but get angry at continuity because half the villains Batman beats up here are also the same villains that are working for Arkham Knight in Detective Comics. So nothing makes sense to me. Would it kill 2 writers to figure out who can use who at the same time? Because we were left in Detective Comics 1002, right? It's 1002?
2001.
Dr. Phosphorus and Mad Hatter and
I think Freeze was in that one too.
and Freeze were all on the screen Damien saw. And Batman fights all of them in Arkham in this issue. So this can't be going on at the same time, obviously. But like I just felt like for normally what's been going on from Batman and Detective, it's usually been like off doing their own things, but they haven't really intertwined to like that head scratching of a point. That did annoy me. So that you can say that's nitpicky for all it is, but I did like how we got a brief rundown of nightmares. We get Batman breaking out, and I'll never not love Batman just beating the crap out of the Riddler as he stands there like confidently trying to say a riddle, and Batman just gets down to business by just punching him in the face. But Batman's going after Bane, and he's taking out all the villains in Arkham who have been lined up to stop him. Notably, what was cool though is the Flamingo was in here, and that was the character created from Orton's Batman and Robin run. He's a cannibal. He's a cannibalistic assassin who dresses in a as a in all pink, and he dresses like a matador. So it was cool to see him again. But we have Jorge Fornes and Mikhail Janin doing the art duties on this issue. And Janin looks like, at least on this issue to me, where it's not as pronouncedly digital as the other ones. I thought this was actually a little bit more sketchy and like it looks like kind of more drawn art than more digital. But I've never had a problem with his art. I always thought it was great. I especially liked the Scarecrow sequence of Batman taking out the Scarecrow. He takes out Amygdala and Solomon Grundy all at once. But
Real quick, what is your rating on Amygdala? That's a Batman villain. I don't give a fuck. He's super
I
generic.
don't care. I've never cared about Amygdala. I the funny thing about Amygdala is, do you remember the very first trailer? Like, I guess the first like trailer we saw of that wasn't just like the rooms in Arkham Asylum for the first Batman Arkham game.
Not really.
All right, so you know how like the toxin thing like makes people like looked all messed up. So like, well, there was a shot of one of those guys in one of the early trailers, and everyone thought it was Amygdala in the game. That's like the highest that Amygdala has ever been since. um, but there's a lot of good like building moments here. We get the name of this arc. It's the Fall and the Fallen, and we get more Tom King using poet like more Tom King literature references.
Yeah, I thought it was a little over the top in this issue.
Yeah, it was okay, but hey, it's we for all the people that complained about Nightmares, which I thought was still a good arc. It would have been better if that stupid Flash crossover didn't run through it. Um, I thought this was fine. The art's fantastic, so I liked the Two Face moment too. But I thought there was a moment where Batman starts manically laughing, and I couldn't tell if that was him being mentally broken or being under the influence of Scarecrow's gas again,
Hmm.
would possibly hinge for the art change. So I'm wondering where that's going because I know Jorge is doing the art on multiple issues going forward on this, as it's been teased on Twitter.
Now, in the end, Bruce says he's going home and he's coming back with an army. And so, are you expecting him to come back with Damian and Tim and Dick and everyone?
That's what I'd like to see, but the fact that Batman and the Outsiders is launching next week, I possibly Dark Horse thinking it might be the Outsiders.
Well, it could be that, and also even just with the status quo. I mean, Dick's obviously got a very strange status quo right now. I think Jason does too. So it's like, who does he really go to? But I think you know more than me. King hasn't used a ton of the Bat family overall, right?
Oh, he's been setting up Duke as kind of Batman. He's used Duke a lot, so I think it's going to hinge on something that Duke's been putting together. And I know that Duke has been kind of set up as leader of the Outsiders, so that's why I'm thinking Outsiders.
Okay.
But if there's one thing I know is Batman has a plan.
All right. Let's talk about a book that shouldn't exist.
Marvel Zombies. I mean, DCeased #1. From Tom Taylor. Um, this was okay. I didn't hate this, but I mean, I don't care for. I guess Tom Taylor has made a career out of writing just for DC books out of continuity. I can't think of a DC book he wrote that was in continuity.
Well, he did like an arc on Batman Superman at the end of the New 52. Um,
So,
I want to say he did one of the Green Lantern Corps like miniseries.
I want to say that as well, but I can't remember. That's the problem. Basically, the plot of this is it's Marvel Zombies, but it's DC's version. The art on this book has been pretty good too. I think Trevor Harrison and Stefano Gudiano. It's like we have like 3 artists on this book, which is odd. That's why it cohesively feels off to me. But the start of this is going viral. The Justice League have captured Darkseid, and Superman just straight up breaks his jaw at the beginning, which was okay, it's overly like it's kind of brutal, but also we have like this monstrous looking DCEASED, but after they've captured Darkseid, they're like wondering, "Hey, where's Cyborg at?" And Batman reveals that he just has a tracker placed on Cyborg at all times, so he can just know where he is. So another Batman's crazy moment, and no one can trust him. Which, can we stop doing that, please? It's like everyone does that now. Um, but apparently, Darkseid has found the anti-life equation, and it's due to Cyborg's mother box technology that he's able to work it. And basically, through the internet, he's able to launch this virus that makes everyone turn into zombies. And Darkseid grabs the Black Racer, and he uses him also to make this work. But Darkseid also succumbs to the virus as it's unleashed everywhere. And we don't know who all is left of the Justice League by the end of this. We know Superman, the Super Sons, and Lois are fine, and Batman and Alfred are fine. But Nightwing's infected, and he's biting, and so is Tim Drake, and they're like biting and clawing at Batman at the end of this. So it looks like Batman's already not made it out. So this is just a giant zombie invasion. I don't think I'm sticking with this, but at least it's like fun. I just don't care for a zombie invasion.
Yeah, I don't care at all. Very initially, when they were teasing and announcing this, I thought it may have been in the main universe. That would be a mess.
No, this is very much its own thing, and as far as reviews everywhere else, I think everyone's given this fairly positive reviews. It's not a bad book. I mean, I'm not. It's just a zombie takeover.
Yeah.
So I mean, whatever.
All right. So DC's big book of the week. Well, I don't. I mean, DC's is, I guess, kind of big, but they have DC's Year of the Villain, or however this is labeled. It's kind of their Free Comic Day issue.
It is. It is their Free Comic Book Day issue. This is being given away this Saturday for Free Comic Book Day, but if you couldn't wait, it cost you a quarter.
Yeah. So we have a few stories here. I'm going to try and speed through them in order. First story, Scott Snyder and Jim Chung. Lex Luthor attacks the president, and Amanda Waller is involved, and he's planning some shit with the Legion of Doom. Captain Atom shows up, and this made me question what Captain Atom's current status quo is. I haven't been following enough of the MCU to know. Yeah, I don't think he's been around frequently. And Bane is playing along, and that's therefore so is Tom King. King is playing along with whatever Snyder's up to.
I felt this sequence was like the write out to how we get Batman out of intrinsically involved / how we do get him involved in this.
Yeah. So Lex is basically crumbling his company. He's redistributing his wealth and power to all the villains in the DC universe, so that they can finally defeat their heroes. And it's kind of like Acts of Justice, Marvel's Acts of Vengeance from late 80s.
Yeah.
But there's no switcheroo. It's just like we're really going to focus and help each other out, but defeat our respective heroes.
I liked how with him attacking the president and taking over the Oval Office, they just come out straight and say like, "All right, definitively Lex is a bad guy again, like forever now after this."
Be interesting to see though. Is it referenced that he has been president before in this issue? I don't think it is.
It's not, and I'm wondering if that's still in continuity.
I would say it probably isn't, but it would be cool to get that acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Where
Like I was looking for something like that, but Lex does kill himself at the end of the story.
yeah, he commits suicide and blows up part of the main LexCorp tower in the process.
Hey, he was at least nice enough to get out to escort everyone out of the building in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So
then second story, Bendis, Brian Bendis and crap, I almost said David Mack. This is Alex Marini. This is the Leviathan setup. We have Green Arrow and Batgirl facing down Merlin, and he's like, chill out, don't beat me up. We got to get the hell out of here. I got to tell you guys, but not right now. And so they finally go along with him, but they get messed up anyways. It turns out that there's Leviathan, which I guess is this shadow organization, and they're
Okay,
taking down all the other. They're
yeah,
taking out all the
Leviathan
other
was set up
organizations.
in Morrison's Batman run. It's the organization that's run by Talia.
Okay. I don't. Do you think that'll still be the case in this story?
Come out and say it in this. That it's. I'm pretty sure they say it's run. And the part with Batman and Damian, it's. I think they say that it's run by Talia.
But they're taking down like all the other organizations, like Checkmate, Cobra, uh, all the other things,
It was nice
and
to see a checkmate reference, though.
mhm. I think I think Bendis has been making some Checkmate references recently in the Superman books.
He has.
Um, and so first annoyance, Babs calls Ollie the Green Arrow at a certain point.
Well, also, I guess Green Arrow is just back because issue 50 ends with him kind of going into hiding.
Yeah. And then whatever Leviathan character in Shadow talking to Batgirl just kind of points out how continuity is broken in a way because there's tons of Oracle references, which I guess maybe Babs was Oracle in the New
Yeah,
52
it's she was,
continuity.
and then she got better.
Yeah, she got magical medical procedure. But we also get references to her association with the Suicide Squad, and that's when she initially became Oracle with Ostrander and Kim Yale. We have a reference to her relations with the Justice League, with the Seven Soldiers, and all kinds of things that I don't know that they necessarily happened or exist in this continuity. And essentially, they're trying to seduce Barbara into joining Leviathan or going along with them. And
Yeah,
their argument is that superheroes don't actually help anything. And there's maybe just a sprinkle of like a hey, capitalism is also kind of sucky. I don't know if that's me overreading, but there's like one or two lines where I was like, are they trying to hint at that? And so that's basically it. And it seems like Barbara might go along. And it's also kind of like they're also appealing to her from the perspective of like a B tier hero, where they're like, yeah, we're not making this offer to Batman Green Arrow. And then Batman is trying to figure shit out, and Damian walks over and wants to prove that this Leviathan character or whatever is not related to Jason. But it ends with some really awkward dialogue where
yeah, it's set up for people that aren't fully on the know-how.
yeah, it's like Damian walks over to his father and talks about and explains to Batman that Jason Todd is Red Hood. And it's like we figured out, that was a decade ago. And then our other story, we have James Tinian and Francis Manipul, and this takes place after the Sixth Dimension arc, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
But I think I like how there is this continuity here at the base level, and it's the same thing over in Marvel, where we know where War of the Realms takes place in comparison to the ongoing Avengers series, but this story is dealing with some source wall mumbo jumbo, which in total isolation, having not read most of the other recent Snyder and Tinian stuff, I don't really have much of a problem with like the whole broken source wall, weird forces and everything like that. The problem I have are the retcons where like this the Flash has the still force and all that stuff, and I think they've made changes to Martian Manhunter and Hawkgirl recently. I
Oh, the
don't.
last issue of Justice League written by Tinian is all rewriting the history of the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor.
Yeah, I don't really like that, but just the idea of like, all right, the source wall is broken, and there's like other civilizations and universes out there and stuff. I think this last story by Tinian, it's almost Morrison-esque, where
Yeah, it
you,
is, but you're not as good as Morrison, is
yeah,
my complaint.
you've got the heavy hitters, and they're saving this whole civilization, and Superman does this crazy feat to turn it around at the last second and everything.
Which,
Batman,
by the way, spoilers for the Sixth Dimension arc because, well, when we talk about that next, Superman is supposed to be dead and doomed by the end of this. So, spoiler, he's going to be fine.
So this entity called Perpetua created the universe in her dark vision and then got trapped in the source wall, but the source wall's dead. So
Yeah.
now there's all kinds of creepy crawlies, and Luther is trying to free her.
And remember, Perpetua is the mother of the Monitor, the Anti-Monitor, and their stupid third brother.
Okay. Back to the Morrison-esque comment, and this is always a problem with this character, and really all characters, but specifically this one. It's funny seeing this Batman who's like a universe away on the monitors helping Superman save an entire civilization when he's also, in the Tom King run where it's a lot more grounded and he's in the middle of Arkham Asylum fighting weirdos in costume.
Yeah.
Um, but that's just something that you deal with when characters are in team books and solo books, and it's always plagued Batman particularly.
Well, especially like right now. Like right now, he's fighting the Arkham Knight, but he's also fighting this huge long Bane thing, and he's part of the Justice League with the Source Wall totality bullshit.
Yeah. And Batman, his what they need to do, they need to grow the league by calling everyone in, which is basically everyone that you would expect in this boring continuity.
There are some characters that have never been part of the Justice League before on here, like Mr. Terrific.
Yeah,
Unless you're counting JLU because he was part of it and then. But
yeah. Of note, Catwoman is in this splash page.
she was part of the Justice League. Yeah, she's been part of it when the New 52's Justice League.
Okay, yeah.
Just Live in America. Steel, the female Steel I see back there.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's basically you have a lot of the heavy hitters, and then you have certain groups. Like the entire Terrifics is on here. Most of the finale of the recent Titans series is on there. But Catwoman is there, which I think is worth noting. There's no Hal Jordan and no Jessica, and I don't really understand
Well,
what.
Jessica's on Justice League Odyssey, so.
Yeah.
But Kyle Rayner and Simon Baz are there, though.
Yeah, and then the other characters that I want to highlight for a different reason are Firestorm, Animal Man, and Captain Atom, because as far as I know, those three characters haven't had that many major appearances recently. And
well, Firestorm with Doomsday Clock.
Yeah,
the one.
Well, that's a whole mess where it's set a year in the future or whatever, and is never going to finish. But it's interesting to see them there, and also they're doing this weird thing. I don't remember if it was actually in the first story where Captain Atom also shows up, but in this splash page, Captain Atom has like this weird like wisp hair thing, which looks really stupid. And Perpetua, Lex killed himself, but I guess teleported himself across the universe to Perpetua, and she's going to turn him into something. And these few stories we set up, you're the villain. And it's weird because what did they I guess they called it Villains Month, right? During the New 52.
Right, where they had where they copy and pasted the same issue of Batman tied up on all the covers and then just had the villains doing something else to him.
Yeah. And I guess it's good that I don't know how to feel about You're the Villain. I mean, I like that DC knows to actually use their villains, whereas a lot of times Marvel just ignores their villains and we get hero versus hero kind of stuff. But also I don't like villain centric stuff usually. I don't know. But we have
villain centric stuff, like we had stuff like Forever Evil, which I actually enjoyed. Like I thought Forever Evil was fun.
Yeah. So we basically have 4 threads spinning from this. We have Snyder, Tinian Justice League stuff. We have Bendis's Event Leviathan. We have a new series.
We also have the Batman Flash uneasiness from the crossover, which was a lead-in.
Yeah.
To this.
And we have new series Batman Superman by Josh Williamson and David Marquez, dealing with the Batman Who Laughs, and also Tom King's Batman.
Right. Which, by the way, that 6-issue series is getting a 7th issue.
Yeah. And in the back of this
So
issue, we have new possible designs for a bunch of villains: Black Manta, Bizarro, Heatwave, Brainiac, Oracle, Ravager, Solomon Grundy, Floronic Man, Captain Cold,
these?
Mirror Master. I don't really like most of these designs.
No, I don't like them.
First and foremost, I don't think any of them really are necessary, but a lot of them I dislike.
I don't hate Moronic Mans.
Yeah, Floronic Man is the one that is kind of fine, and by nature his design is a little more fluid.
Yeah, he should be changing.
And the kind of next part of this event, as far as line wide, is Force of July, which is going to happen in July, and Lex is offering stuff to villains, and it's very similar to Underworld Unleashed, the '90s event with Neuron offering everyone a deal with the devil kind of. And we also learned that the Batman Who Laughs has infected 6 characters to like be agents and eventually turn evil or something. And they give us a page of all the characters that could possibly be included, and it's pretty much all major ones here. Like it's not one where it's like, oh, no one gives a fuck about that character, so cross them off. And this is the part which I'm wary about. I don't want fucking characters to be like, oh, I'm a bad guy now. Let me cut your head off.
Booster Gold's on there. Oh no.
Well, we already know he's already fucked up. But it's
He's already got stuff enough.
pretty content packed issue for Free Comic Day offering.
Yeah, DC's been doing this style like this multi-level sampler of their line-wide stuff for going back as far as like Batman RIP when they did the DC Universe Zero one shot. Like this has kind of been their standard way of operating around this time of year for Free Comic Book Day. Basically lining up, here's multiple stories of the stuff that's going to be coming out soon, and get ready. I enjoy this, especially for a quarter. You got a lot of story here and a lot of great art for a quarter. So
Yep.
there you go.
All right. How about stuff that takes place before this?
Yep, Justice League number 23, the Sixth Dimension still happening. We open up with Superman teaching John a lesson on how to make fire the old-fashioned way, and basically have to. The lesson there is we shouldn't abandon the old ideals of just because we have a way that's easier doesn't mean we stop trying when the going gets tough. As it cuts back to Superman, who's still trapped in his little dark void dimension, and we get this absolutely gorgeous panel action shot of Superman actually saying "up, up, and away" to try to get out of it. As he's pulling the last amount of his energy to fly through it and try to break through the door. And we cut back to the Justice League, and Lois Lane is just shit is going down in this now failing Sixth Dimension universe. Batman is making a deal with the leader. It's it's the brother of the monitors. And he does agree to basically what's laid out is Superman is the striking cause for why this whole merging fails. So Batman decides to make the sacrifice play of, all right, bye bye Superman, so we can save everyone. And the rest of the Justice League is saved by this world's villains. And it's Darkseid that's flying the spaceship. So we get a dumb moment of the Flash going, "Well, who's flying the ship?" And then it was Darkseid is from as that's always the big thing from Mr. Miracle. But yeah, I really am not loving this arc. I feel like I say it every time I have to cover Justice League. The only redeeming thing is the art is so goddamn beautiful. But yeah, whatever. Especially now knowing that Superman's gonna get out and knowing that Batman wouldn't make that play. I'm assuming Snyder's going to have it as Batman just backhanded the deal anyway, and he knew that everything wasn't fine, and that's the way they're going to get out of this. But having the tension of Superman being absolutely fine in the Year of the Villain one shot, and knowing like how he's marked for doom in this kind of cuts out any big tension here. But I just think this story is kind of all over the place. Don't love it. I wish Justice League book was not all tied to this broken source wall totality stuff. I thought I really want it to be like just tell Justice League stories. Like I feel like the story would be a lot better if it wasn't tied to the source wall and the totality and everything. But I'll move on to Young Justice number 5. This this issue is mostly about Tim Drake and Stephanie Brown. And they just come out right and say it that like for them at least, we flash back to they're going their separate ways. Steph wants to go have a connection with her dad because he's out of prison and wants to spend time with his daughter, and Tim knows that his best friend is Connor Kent, and he's going to go to Metropolis to figure out what the hell happened to him because he wants to try to ask Superman if he remembers, because like basically their memories are coming back and they've each faced things. Spinning out of Tinian's Detective Comics run of Steph got the vision of her as Batgirl. So they're trying to figure out what all still happened and what didn't. And Zatanna showed up and made some things clear for them. But flashing back to the current, the Opal Overlord from Amethyst attacks Young Justice, but they're able to beat them. And it seems like the next issue it's the fate of Young Justice. So it looks like this opening art and with Gemworld and Amethyst is wrapping up, but it seems that what Zatanna did unlocked all of the locked memories, at least with Tim Drake, because we get this awesome splash page of basically the entire history of Young Justice, and I commend Bendis for like remembering like there's like members of Young Justice that are pretty minor that he managed to get in here. Like the Ray's on this page, the young Lobo is, the female Speedy, like everyone's on this page that was kind of ever part of the team, which is really, really cool. So hopefully, I think this is the book that hopefully is going to kind of answer questions of what the hell is going on with DC continuity. But maybe that's just still the pipe dream. But hey, I still enjoy Young Justice, and it's still pretty good.
Cool. Back to our ongoing Hunted coverage. We have Amazing Spider-Man number 20.HU. This is the Vulture Spotlight issue. Art by
the last Spider-Man issue we're getting for a little bit too.
Yeah. Art by Corey Smith. And basically Arcade spills all the beans to Vulture and gives him a doohickey to win, because Arcade, he'll set up these death traps and make these games, but they have to be fair. There has to be some way to escape or win.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that concept. And so he's like, and also the doohickey gets more effective basically when you go on a kill streak, essentially.
Yeah.
But then he makes this Mario reference, which I don't think makes any sense. It's like you have to keep killing people and it'll work better, just like Mario and the mushrooms. It's like it's not really how those games work, but whatever. But it turns out it's actually a double cross from Craven. Craven wanted Arcade to set up Vulture like this, and that's basically it. And then we get a splash page of Vulture essentially being the leader, and all the villains are going to start really being effective against the Hunter drones, which
there's the sub story in this of how we got multiple vermins.
Yeah, which is the backup art by Tyler Crook. And the plot thing here is that Vermin accidentally spills to Arcade that the Lizard and Taskmaster are working together. But then he like gets injected with something and commits mitosis, I guess would be the right word.
Right.
he starts splitting and multiplying, and it for like 2 panels, it's really fucking creepy.
Yeah.
Um, I'm interested to hear what our friend Matt thinks about this backup. He probably is not a fan.
I think this is the first hunted issue that I don't love nor was blown away by. This was more or less like not about the Vulture and was more, hey, here's stuff that's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah,
Um,
I enjoyed in the splash page that Frogman and also Toad, which I'm not certain what Toad's status quo is, because we saw him in Uncanny X-Men once, I believe.
Great. We saw him last week in Uncanny.
Yeah, he was with the Brotherhood, I believe.
Yeah, Madrox chasing him around with the bat.
Yeah, and so he's in this. Also, the I forget her real name, but the female teenage Scorpion from the Amazing Fantasy Volume 2, she's in this splash page. And especially seeing Frogman, it just made me think, like, I wish we could get a complete 100% accurate list of everyone who's in the dome, because there are a lot of characters with code names and connections to animals, villains and heroes.
Yeah.
And so it'd be interesting to see who got snubbed and everything like that. But this issue, it was fine. The backup, the art by Tyler Crook in the backup was really nice.
Yeah, I enjoyed the backup more than the main story.
I love his interpretation of Arcade.
That's great.
His art, it makes, like, Tyler Crook, I believe, does a lot. He does Harrow County, which is a horror book with Cullen Bunn, and his style is, and the coloring. I don't know. I don't think he's necessarily coloring himself. I'm not certain, but it almost is like a semi watercolor way, kind of aesthetic, and so it's like a weird mix of cute and creepy, which is
I like
perfect.
how he draws Arcade like an evil Conan O'Brien.
Yeah. All right, Mike, talk about Marvel Team Up #2.
Yeah. This is a book that exists. Eval Ewing, Joey Vasquez. Part 2 of this body swap story arc between Kamala and Spider-Man. Kamala Khan Ms. Marvel and Peter Parker Spider-Man, just because we have multiple of these characters now. But we get some fun hijinks of them trying to learn each other's powers, and obviously it not working out. Um, and then juxtaposed as the first issue of Peter wanting to be young again and Kamala wanting to be older, they now both get to experience that. Kamala fails Peter's job interview for him, while Pete fails Kamala's science project, like science project presentation. So like a little bit of you don't always get it doesn't always work out what you want if you could go back or if you could go forward. I like that, but that inconvenient times they will switch back into each other's heads or I guess bodies, but they're going to figure out a full way to make it so it's permanent. So that's the big thing, and the doctor that can do this is captured by the Jackal. So this is still going on for a this is for this will be going on for a third issue. But I like the next cover with Kamala with Pete's powers and Pete with Kamala's powers on the cover. But this is fun. It's a fun book. It's all right. Doesn't blow me away. I'd like to see. Personally, I'd like these story arcs to just be 2 issues, no more than 2. I think 3's pushing it for Marvel Team Up. But that might just be me. I don't know what your thoughts would be on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the old Marvel Team Up, it's like very rarely they would kind of string together different team ups, and so you'd essentially have it start stacking, where it would be like Spider-Man teaming up with Mr. Fantastic, but the previous issue was Invisible Woman, and the one before that Human Torch, or something like that, and they'd still be in the book. But Yeah,
What
generally,
I
I agree with you. I think this
wish
should be more one-off than other series.
what I would wish for to happen. Do you remember the George Perez, Mark Wade, Brave and the Bold?
Yeah.
Kind of like how everything fed into each other. I kind of wish maybe like if we're gonna do extended art like 3 issues on that, I feel like it'd be fun to do that with this. But we'll see what happens. Also, Kamala's parents are just flat out here, so I guess this takes place to before her ongoing book.
Yeah, I guess. Meet the Scrolls number 4. Um, so the father turns out that he knew that the hunter was on their trail. And so there's this scene where his wife just beats the shit out of him, like to the point where his face is bleeding just right in front of their 2 daughters. It's really weird. And they get approved to go on their mission together as a family. And it turns out that the package that they're trying to grab is their other daughter, their third daughter, who they assumed was killed. And then the scroll boss kills the dad, but before that, turns out neither of them are motivated by the scroll empire. They have some kind of other motivations, and that's basically it. It's fine. Again, the main character, who I thought was the main character, the kind of misfit younger child, isn't as prominent in this issue or as complex as the first 2 issues. These last 2 I've been a little more iffy on. And now I don't even know that she has the same characterization as before. She's kind of like figured things out and is going along with it. She's like down to be a scroll now. And I think there's only one more issue left. And so I'm interested. I'm gonna finish it, and I'm interested to see where they end it. But it's based on half of the series so far, it's not going in the direction I expected.
In a good or bad way.
From my like for what I was interested in a bad way, but it's not really a bad book. It's not what I wanted. Now, in a bad way is Major X number 3. The big surprise here is Rob Liefeld does not draw this issue. He is writing, but Whilce Portaccio is drawing it. And you can
I feel like
definitely
it's a
tell.
fine trade-off.
Yeah, you can definitely tell the difference, but it's not like night and day, honestly. Like Portaccio, I don't know if he's trying to like replicate some of Liefeld's style,
I'm
or
looking at it. It feels like he is.
yeah, or that they're just image guys. I think Portaccio's gotten a little rougher in the past like 6 years or so.
Yeah, well,
Not
older.
yeah, not a huge fan of modern Will Portaccio. Um, and so we get Wolverine, and this is again, I was confused at first because the issue just opens and I assume okay we're in the present 616 universe, etc.
Yeah.
But this is still this is still the point in the timeline of like the heyday of Liefeld X Force. So this is like 90s Wolverine. He's in the brown and tan, which I guess is so. Jim Lee is already left, I believe. I don't know. I don't really remember the timeline, but it's X Force 90s era Wolverine hanging out with this weird future version of Beast, and they get along real quickly because, like, oh, it's Beast, kind of. But it turns out maybe it actually is just a future version of the regular Beast. There's like this
Okay.
dumb tease about that, and I'm like, I don't really care. And then we leave the 90s X Force era to go to around 2000 for Rob Liefeld's Wolverine run, a very short run. And he's bringing back a crew of villains which had a single appearance in a Wolverine issue. And they all have weird designs, and this includes Deadeye Dick, Pigskin, Megamax, and Minimax, and they're led by Dreadpool. And we have some action and some bad puns later. A mysterious guy and the Existential show up,
I like how they
and
all look like rejected Spawn villains.
yeah, and then the issue just ends because maybe the Existential is a bad guy, or is initially a bad guy, or there's a misunderstanding, And there's also through this issue, there's some subplot of the Atlanteans, his version of the Atlanteans doing whatever their shit against Major X in the background. It doesn't make any sense. This book is kind of trash.
Really? We all knew it was going to be.
On the other hand, still though, sort of X-Men related, Uncanny X-Men number 17. We get a funeral for Wolfsbane, who at the end we ended last issue with, I believe, was it who shared the information? Was it Karma or it was Moondragon? Not Moondragon. Danny.
It's Danny. I believe it was Danny.
Someone was like, Wolfsbane's dead. And
yeah, it's by the way, Wolfsbane's dead. What?
So we get the funeral for Wolfsbane. Meanwhile, Wolverine and Quanon go off on their own to grieve their own way. And Havoc wants to join them, and we get like 2 pages of Havoc being like, "Let me go," and they just don't let him go. And at the funeral, Scott rolls off a giant list of dead characters. And at first, it's like, okay, the first chunk is, okay, here's a bunch of characters that Matt Rosenberg has killed recently. But then you remember that, of course, the whole setup for this era of X-Men under Rosenberg is sort of reliant on the fact that Age of X-Men is running alongside it, because when you really think about it, Age of X-Men is closer in a way to like Onslaught than Age of Apocalypse, because in terms of the way it impacts the main universe, because all the characters who are split off for that are presumed dead. And Magic has this moment where she says when she sees Wolfsbane next, and I don't know if that's where it's like, I died too. I died when I was a child, and then I came back to life. And so it's like, and when she came back to life and everything, X from Furnace, Magic also familiar with different versions of the afterlife, and or just knowing that superheroes die and come back all the time, such as.
I feel like though Wolfsbane won't be dead for long because Maisie Williams is playing her in a movie.
Yeah, so, but that movie was supposed to come out like a year ago.
Yeah, but still though, it's Arya Stark.
Yeah. So Quanon shares the memory with Logan, and basically some asshole guys try to pick up Wolfsbane, and she's like, "Nah, I'm not interested." And they get testy and they beat and kill her from being a mutant. And so Logan goes after them and kills them and some guards. We don't get to see him really do any of that. Shows back up to the bar. He fights with Scott, and our tease for the next arc is Emma Frost and Scott, either from coming back to the dead or maybe from some mind wiping.
Well, it also could be the bullet to the eye.
Yeah, that it could be that too. For whatever reason, he seems to not know who Emma Frost is. And this next arc could potentially totally kill my interest in this book.
Oh yeah, I know. Like I saw this tease and I was like, "Ooh, you're either gonna like where this is going or hate it."
Yeah. But also, I've also seen some rumors popping up. There's been a whole question of like, how is Hickman stuff actually affecting the X-Men? I have seen some rumors that this Rosenberg run might end around like issue 22 or 23 or so, and it might actually be ending.
That'd be very disappointing because I feel like we'll just look back on this and be like, "Well, that was another run that had some promise," and then they just ended it.
Yeah. But we should note the scene, Wolfsbane's death scene.
I don't like it.
Yeah, it's a little controversial. Some people are interpreting it as essentially trans panic. They think based on some of the dialogue used and some of the words that Rosenberg is essentially trying to use a metaphor for how transgender people are occasionally killed when they reject someone or there's a misunderstanding. One of the characters uses the word trap, like or what are you trying to trap us? And Wolfsbane is like, no, I'm a normal girl, and stuff like this. And I could definitely see that interpretation. That
I
interpretation, it doesn't like obviously I'm not in a position necessarily where it would offend me. I understand people who it would offend them, but I don't necessarily think that that should be off limits. I mean, this is the X-Men. When you're going to do those kinds of metaphors, this is a book to do them. But I
right.
think it's a little forced, and it's definitely a little forced and heavy-handed in execution. And I just don't buy it for this character.
Yeah, no, that's the other it comes out of so far left field, and it's just so if anything, it came off more to me more lazy and uninspired than anything. Like, why she can transform into a werewolf, just have her run away. Like, why would she just sit in a fetal position and let them beat up on her?
Yeah, and we left off with her being like, "I don't want to be a superhero." It's like, okay, that's fine, but
Which has kind of been what everyone does with her. Like, that's what she does in David's X Factor. She doesn't want to be part of that, but then she comes back and has her kid and stuff. Like,
but
but
it's
like,
but it's like, okay, you don't want to be a superhero, but you can run away.
yeah,
They didn't set it up as, oh, I'm suddenly a hardcore pacifist or anything. It was like, I just don't want to go fighting on the front lines, and so just run away. Just
yeah, go
run.
live your life somewhere else. Like, I don't feel like we didn't need a death here, and we were talking about it off air. There's been now what roughly one death per every 6 issues.
Something like that. I mean, more than that. 11 was the death of Blindfold, and that got a little bit of controversy because it was
Yeah,
a
that death
suicide.
was really odd too. I don't think Rosenberg handles deaths very well. Like, even Joseph's death was just like, oh, okay, well, all right, well, he showed up and he died.
Yeah, we had Blindfold, Wolfsbane, Joseph, Strong Guy, probably one or two more I can't think of at the moment.
Strong Guy, but like technically, Strong Guy should have already been dead because he was the ruler of one of the dimensions of hell. So I don't
Who
know.
knows? All right, but let's round things out with our last book for the week.
Yeah, War of the Realms #3 by Jason Aaron, Russell Donovan, Matthew Wilson. Hey, if anything else, this book is beautiful.
Yeah.
But I can't help but think that with the way Marvel's publishing their events, I feel like I'm just getting the cliff notes of just every single tie-in that's going on right now, and I'm not actually getting a story here. If that makes sense to you?
Well, there's definitely when you get to it later, there's definitely one part where I'm like, did I miss something?
Yeah. So this is the quest for Thor. So we have multiple teams of Avengers going to do different things. Though our kind of our core group is going to Jotunheim to get Thor back. So that's what Captain America and a stupid winter coat. Which I don't know why he needs a winter coat, but Wolverine can just wear like jeans and a t-shirt, and Spider-Man's just wearing his regular costume.
And a stupid helmet.
Yeah. Also, like Spider-Man's like, why do I? What Cap has like this giant axe, and he's like, why am I only going into battle with the shield? Who goes into battle with the shield? And he looks at right at Captain America. I was like, come on, like this is so
But
on the nose.
but also like you chose your weapons.
Yeah,
And Luke Cage is with them.
yeah. And then the
And I
Punisher shooting dark elves.
yeah. Yeah, so Freya takes basically the most unpredictable and edgy characters with her
Yeah, I know.
for like kind of the more critical mission, which doesn't seem very smart.
Though I do like what I did like was how Malekith has the ebony blade.
Yeah, but that's also not necessarily smart. I mean, the Ebony Blade, like its current status quo changes all the time, but
Yeah,
at certain times you pick that shit up, you're fucked. But this is the part where I
I
was
like
like,
the component of that. Like I like that. Like that's a part of the play in here. The War Avengers are what the hell is that team?
yeah, that's Captain Marvel, Deadpool, Venom, Captain Britain, cool, Winter Soldier, Sif, and Weapon H showing up.
Yeah, when did Captain Britain get a really nice beard?
He's kind of had like two background appearances in X-Men stuff over the past few years. He was in a X-Men Gold annual. They did a Excalibur reunion, and
And Daredevil's just being used as Heimdall's eyes, pretty much. Like he's uh he's kind of our voice of telling us what's all going on. Tony and Shuri are out building armor from with what are they, the dwarves?
yeah,
Yeah.
just dwarves. I don't remember their specific name.
Remember when Tony built his Fear Itself armor with dwarves?
Yeah, but back to the War Avengers sequence. This
Yeah.
is the part where I'm like, did I miss a tie-in? Because Malekith is just suddenly in Britain, and Union Jack and Spitfire and um, and Black Knight are all on the ground. And Black Knight later you see that he's alive, but like, did I don't know if Union Jack and Spitfire died off panel, or if they're also just on the ground.
Also, is this a new Black Knight? Because he's got a different costume.
No, I think that's just what, however they're drawing him.
Okay.
Um, and the Fantastic Four get a nice splash page. That's all right.
Yeah, there's a lot of nice splash pages going on. Atlantis and Wakanda get like multiple panels.
But basically, Daredevil fucks up.
Yeah, yep. That is true. As the Rainbow Bridge is destroyed. But the Avengers, or at least I'm just gonna say the core group because it's the big names, because Cap, Spider-Man, and Wolverine are there, and then you also got Luke Cage and Iron Fist. But they do find Thor, who's just been like, I guess, just killing a bunch of frost giants as he's just like in this mad berserker rage that Wolverine puts. Also, he's down to one arm again.
Yeah, I like this splash page. I like how this series. I I don't know how to say this without sounding weird. I like how it has blood and it has like these metal ass sound effects and some action
Yeah.
sequences, but it's not. It doesn't come off like just like gratuitous for the sake of it, like ripping.
Well, the lettering on the sound effects is fantastic.
Yeah, but like like this final panel where it's like Thor and there's blood splatter everywhere. If you compare that to when Sentry rips Ares in half, I think there's a difference.
Oh yeah, like I still feel like this can belong in a Marvel comic book.
Yeah, but it also has a little bit of an edge,
Yeah.
and even aspects like honestly, like as much as I hate the inclusion of some of these characters and everything, there's one panel where Freya's stupid team is like rolling on the car and they're like yelling and stuff like that, and it's like you take that panel out of context, it's like, yeah, this is kind of insane fun,
I should
dumb.
say, like, I do want to state, I'm not completely hating this. I'm actually having more fun with it than I let on.
Yeah, yeah, it's just I mean it's ultimately all right.
Yeah, I think it is the most what is the most jarring though is that it feels like the main event books now are just like the Cliff Notes version of all the other tie-ins. Like this is kind of the same way I felt when we were reading for Saga of the Clone Saga, like when we were reading Spider-Verse and Spider-Geddon. Is that nothing really ever happens in the main book other than like probably issues 1 and then the middle and then the end. And this is already the middle, and I don't feel like much has happened since issue 1.
Yeah, the other potentially major thing we didn't mention is that Venom gets stabbed by the ebony blade and just kind of disappears.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what that is. But also Malekith teases that like, and I listened to a Donny Cates interview recently. Like, whatever Donny Cates is doing with Venom's mythos now is actually somehow related to like Asgardian mythos. It's really weird, but whatever.
Okay.
So that's War of the Realms. That's this week's show.
I mean, I guess what would you pick as your favorite book of the week? I'm going to go with Young Justice #5.
I think this is actually a hard pick for me.
Yeah, it's the first week I think of at least us doing the show where I didn't. It's the first week where I had more bad books than good books.
I'm not even, well, I mean, I did read Major X, but I'm not even sure that I would necessarily say that.
Or it's not bad books, just like books I didn't enjoy.
Honestly, pick of the week for me might be You're the Villain or Batman.
Fine pick. It's a fine pick.
Yep. So tune in next week for Swamp Thing 140 and whatever else we read. Probably another issue of Batman, probably another issue of X-Men, probably another issue of War of the Realm, because everything is weekly now, just like our show. So we'll see you then.